Sometimes the strongest love stories are the ones that never turn into romance. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are two names everyone knows. Both are beloved actors who have starred in movies that people watch again and again. But what makes them truly special isn't just their acting. It's the way they carry themselves in real life, kind, humble, and respectful. In a world like Hollywood, where fame can change people, Keanu and Sandra remain two of the most genuine stars. And when you bring their names together, something magical happens. Their story begins in 1994 with the blockbuster movie Speed. Keanu played Jack, a brave cop determined to save lives, and Sandra played Annie, a normal woman who suddenly had to drive a bus that could explode at any moment. The action, suspense, and thrills made the film unforgettable. But what really stood out was the connection between the two stars. Fans noticed how naturally they looked at each other, how much trust was in their voices, and how comfortable they seemed even in the most stressful scenes. It was clear, there was chemistry, and it was strong. Sandra later revealed that she had a crush on Keanu while filming. She said he was gentle, caring, and funny in a way that made her relax on set. For a young actress still getting used to big roles, his kindness meant the world. What Sandra didn't know was that Keanu also liked her. Years later, he admitted he had a crush too. The crazy part is, they never told each other. Sandra thought Keanu wasn't interested. Keanu thought Sandra wasn't interested. So instead of becoming a couple, they became close friends. Even though they didn't date, their bond stayed strong for decades. Fans often say it might have been fate. Maybe they weren't meant to be together in a romantic way, but they were meant to stay in each other's lives forever. And sometimes that kind of love is even more powerful. Keanu has said many thoughtful things about Sandra over the years. In interviews, he never rushes his words. When asked about her, he pauses, smiles, and then speaks from the heart. He once said, "Sandra is a beautiful person inside and out." It's a simple sentence, but fans went wild. Because with Keanu, simple doesn't mean small. He is not a man of empty flattery. He means what he says. Sandra has also shared her admiration for Keanu. She remembered how he once brought her champagne and truffles just because she had mentioned she had never tried them. That small act stayed with her for years, and when she told the story, fans called it one of the most romantic gestures ever. The media loves to remind people about their friendship. Whenever Keanu or Sandra gives a new interview, headlines pop up. Why didn't Keanu and Sandra ever date? Or are they Hollywood's greatest what-if couple? Social media explodes with fans posting comments like, "They should have been together," or "They are soulmates who just missed the timing." But maybe that's what makes this story so powerful. It isn't about missed chances. It's about two people who met, formed a connection, and never let it fade. In Hollywood, many relationships come and go, but this one has lasted for more than 25 years. That says something. Part 1 of this story sets the stage for everything else. It shows us that Keanu and Sandra's bond is not about labels. It's not about dating or marriage. It's about love in its purest form, respect, kindness, and admiration. And as we move forward, we'll look at the exact words Keanu has used to describe Sandra, words that fans call some of the most romantic ever spoken. Sometimes one movie is all it takes to change two lives forever. In 1994, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock stepped onto the same movie set for the first time. The film was Speed, a thrilling action story about a bus that couldn't slow down or it would explode. Keanu played Jack, the brave cop who had to save everyone, while Sandra played Annie, the ordinary woman suddenly thrown into a life-or-death mission. On paper, it was just another Hollywood action movie. But when the cameras rolled, something magical happened. Keanu and Sandra's connection was immediate. From the first scene, they looked so natural together that fans couldn't believe it was only acting. The way Keanu's calmness balanced Sandra's nervous energy made every scene feel real. They laughed together, worked in sync, and trusted each other during long, exhausting days on set. It wasn't just chemistry, it was comfort, the kind that can't be faked. Sandra later admitted she was nervous filming such a big movie. She was still fairly new in Hollywood, and she didn't want to make mistakes. But Keanu made her feel safe. He wasn't just a co-star. He was like a partner who always had her back. She remembered how he never made her feel small or inexperienced. Instead, he encouraged her, gave her confidence, and made the tough filming days easier. Keanu, for his part, admired Sandra's energy. He once said she brought light to the set, even when the movie's scenes were dark and serious. He noticed little things about her, like how she treated the crew kindly or how she worked hard to get every detail right. That respect grew into a bond that lasted even after filming ended. When Speed came out, it was an instant hit. Audiences loved the action, but what they couldn't stop talking about was the connection between Keanu and Sandra. People left theaters saying, "They look like a real couple." Rumors spread quickly. Were they dating in secret? Did something happen off-screen? Both of them denied it, saying they were just good friends. But fans weren't convinced. The truth is, both of them were quietly hiding feelings. Sandra later confessed she had a crush on Keanu, but thought he wasn't interested. Years later, Keanu admitted he liked her too, but didn't think she felt the same. This mutual silence became one of Hollywood's most famous missed chances. Still, what they gained instead was something rare in show business: a real friendship that has lasted decades. For Sandra, Keanu wasn't just a co-star. He was someone she trusted deeply. For Keanu, Sandra wasn't just another actress. She was someone he admired for her kindness and spirit. Fans often say that Speed wasn't just a movie about saving lives on a bus. It was the movie that gave Hollywood one of its most enduring bonds. Without it, Keanu and Sandra might never have crossed paths in such a meaningful way. Looking back, Sandra once joked that filming Speed gave her more than just career success. It gave her Keanu as a lifelong friend. And Keanu himself has said that working with Sandra was one of the highlights of his career, not just because of the movie's success, but because of the connection they built. Speed was the spark that started everything. It wasn't the start of a romance, but it was the start of a story fans would never forget. And from this spark, Keanu's most romantic quotes about Sandra began to appear in interviews over the years, showing just how much she meant to him. Real love doesn't always need loud words. Sometimes the quietest compliments say the most. Keanu Reeves is known for being soft-spoken. He is not the kind of person who brags or shows off, even though he's one of the most famous actors in the world. When he speaks, he does so slowly and carefully, as if he wants every word to matter. This is why, when he talks about Sandra Bullock, people pay attention. His words aren't dramatic or over the top, but they carry a weight that makes them unforgettable. One of the first times Keanu publicly spoke about Sandra, he described her in the simplest but most powerful way. Sandra is a beautiful person, inside and out. She has this energy that lights up a room. On the surface, it sounds like just a compliment. But if you think about it, it's much more than that. Keanu wasn't only talking about her looks. He was praising her heart, her kindness, and the special presence she carries with her wherever she goes. This wasn't the only time Keanu spoke with admiration for Sandra. In interviews over the years, he often highlighted things that most people wouldn't even notice. Instead of saying she's pretty or talented, like many actors do about their co-stars, he talked about her laughter, her energy, and the way she made people feel comfortable. That's rare. It shows he paid attention to who she was as a person, not just as an actress. Sandra herself once admitted that Keanu's compliments felt different from others. She said he had this way of making people feel seen. For example, if she was nervous or stressed, Keanu would quietly say something supportive. His words were simple, but they carried so much care that she felt calmer right away. She said that with Keanu, it never felt like Hollywood talk. It felt real. Fans noticed this too. Whenever Keanu mentioned Sandra, even in passing, it would become news. Social media would light up with comments like, "Why does he talk about her like that if he doesn't love her?" Or, "These are not just friend words, this is romance." Whether or not Keanu meant them romantically, the truth is that his words about Sandra always carried a gentle admiration that sounded almost like love. One reason people believe Keanu's words are so special is because of his personality. He's famously private. He doesn't talk much about his personal life, and he almost never makes dramatic statements. So, when he does share something, fans know it's honest. If Keanu says Sandra lights up a room, then he truly believes it. Their friendship has always been built on respect. Keanu never spoke about Sandra in a way that was flashy or gossipy. He never treated her like just another co-star. Instead, he lifted her up with his words, showing the world how much she meant to him without ever crossing a line. That balance between admiration and respect is what fans find so romantic. Sandra once said in an interview that she didn't know anyone who disliked Keanu. She described him as someone who takes care of the people around him. Hearing this, fans realized that the admiration went both ways. It wasn't just Keanu quietly praising Sandra. Sandra was also deeply moved by his kindness. For many fans, Part 3 of this story is where the magic begins to shine. It shows us how Keanu's way of speaking about Sandra wasn't ordinary. It was thoughtful, warm, and respectful. His words weren't just about Hollywood beauty. They were about something deeper, something that touched people's hearts. When people look back at these quotes, they don't just hear a man talking about his co-star. They hear a man carefully choosing words to describe someone he truly values. That's why, even decades later, Keanu's admiration for Sandra still feels so romantic. Sometimes, the best way to know someone's worth is to hear how others talk about them. Sandra Bullock has never held back when it comes to speaking about Keanu Reeves. Over the years, in interview after interview, she has shared her admiration, respect, and even a bit of playful affection for him. While Keanu's compliments about Sandra are gentle and quiet, Sandra's words often glow with warmth and humor. And together, their words paint a picture of a friendship that feels larger than life. One of the strongest things Sandra ever said about Keanu was, "He's kind, he's quiet, and he takes care of everyone around him. I don't know anyone who doesn't like Keanu." That statement alone is powerful. Hollywood is a tough place, full of competition and egos, but Keanu somehow stands apart. To hear Sandra say that nobody dislikes him tells us everything about his character. Sandra has also told stories about Keanu that reveal his thoughtful side. In one famous interview, she laughed as she recalled how, years ago, she mentioned she had never tried champagne and truffles. A few days later, Keanu showed up at her house with both, just so she could try them. He didn't do it to impress her, or for attention. It was simply because he listened and cared. Sandra said that moment showed her just how rare he was. She also described Keanu as someone who makes people feel safe. On the set of Speed, when she was still new to action movies, she admitted she was often nervous. But Keanu never let her feel small or unsure. Instead, he gave her confidence and encouraged her to trust herself. That type of support, Sandra explained, made her feel not only like a better actress, but also like a stronger person. Fans love these little stories because they show the real Keanu, the man behind the movies. And Sandra is often the one who shares these truths with the world. Whenever she speaks about him, her eyes light up, and her voice softens just a little. People notice that. They say things like, "You can tell she still has feelings for him," or "She talks about him like no one else." Sandra has even joked about their connection. In one interview, she said, "I guess maybe we could have been more than friends. But who knows, maybe that would have ruined it." Fans latched onto that line immediately. To them, it sounded like a confession that she once thought Keanu could have been the one. Even though she said it lightly, many believe there was truth behind her words. Another thing Sandra often highlights is Keanu's humility. She once said that even though he was already a big star when they met, he never acted like one. He treated everyone, from the director to the assistants, with the same respect. That humility, she explained, made him stand out in an industry where many people let fame go to their heads. The way Sandra speaks about Keanu has helped fans understand why their bond feels so timeless. It isn't based on gossip or Hollywood drama. It's built on respect, admiration, and small acts of kindness that mean everything. Every time Sandra tells a story about him, fans fall in love with their friendship all over again. In many ways, Sandra's words about Keanu are just as romantic as Keanu's words about her. They may not call each other soulmates, but the way they describe one another often feels like love. It's the type of bond that inspires people to believe in pure, lasting connections. And this is why, when Sandra talks about Keanu, fans listen closely. Because through her voice, we get to see Keanu in a light that no one else can show us. A light that proves their bond is not just friendship, but something much deeper. Sometimes, one sentence can feel more romantic than a whole love story. Keanu Reeves is not known for being flashy with his words. He doesn't give long speeches about love or make grand declarations in public. Instead, he says things that are short, simple, and honest. And maybe that's why they touch people so deeply, because they sound real. One of his most memorable quotes about Sandra Bullock proves this perfectly. Keanu once said, "She's just such a wonderful person. I don't know what it is, but she makes you feel like you're the only one in the room." At first glance, it's a simple line. But if you slow down and really think about it, it's one of the most romantic things you can ever say about someone. Why? Because he's not talking about her fame, her looks, or even her talent as an actress. He's describing the feeling she gives people, the sense of being seen, of being valued, of being important. That is something much deeper than ordinary compliments. It shows how closely he paid attention to who Sandra is as a person. Fans went wild when they heard this quote. Social media exploded with posts like, "If Keanu said that about me, I'd cry forever, and that's love, plain and simple." Even people who don't usually follow celebrity news felt moved. Because everyone wants to feel like they're the only one in the room to someone. And Keanu admitted that Sandra has that rare power. The media also called this one of the most romantic compliments in Hollywood history. Headlines like "Keanu Reeves' sweet words about Sandra Bullock" popped up everywhere. Talk shows replayed the quote again and again, analyzing it like a love letter. Even though Keanu didn't say it as a romantic confession, the way he spoke made it sound like something out of a love poem. Sandra herself never denied the impact of Keanu's words. While she never said exactly how she felt when she heard that compliment, her smile whenever she talked about him told the world enough. Fans often pointed out that she looked a little shy, almost like she was holding back her true feelings. This quote also stood out because it reminded people of their speed days. In the movie, their characters Jack and Annie had to rely on each other completely. They had to trust each other in life or death moments. When Keanu said Sandra made people feel like the only one in the room, it felt like he was speaking both as a co-star and as a friend who had experienced that trust in real life. What makes Keanu's words so powerful is that they are timeless. If he had said them back in the 90s, they would have been moving. If he said them today, they would still touch hearts. It doesn't matter when, because the honesty never fades. Fans also love to compare Keanu's style of speaking with other Hollywood stars. While many actors give long, fancy speeches about their co-stars, Keanu uses short, heartfelt sentences that feel more genuine. People believe him because he has nothing to gain by saying these things. He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't look for attention. He just says what he feels. And maybe that's why this quote remains one of the highlights of his friendship with Sandra. It shows not just admiration, but also a quiet kind of love, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. When you put this in the bigger picture of their story, it becomes clear why fans still dream about them as a couple. Even if they never dated, quotes like this make people believe there was something deeper between them. Maybe it wasn't romance, but it was something very close. This moment marks one of the first times Keanu's admiration for Sandra crossed the line into words that sounded undeniably romantic. And it wouldn't be the last. Because in the years that followed, Keanu shared even more quotes that fans still talk about today. Words that felt like love letters hidden in plain sight. What if just a few kind words could make the whole world believe in love again? Keanu Reeves has always been admired for his calm, thoughtful way of speaking. He doesn't waste words, and when he compliments someone, people know he means it. One of his most famous quotes about Sandra Bullock is proof of this. It wasn't a long speech or a flowery love letter. It was one simple sentence that touched millions of hearts. Keanu once said, "Sandra has a way of making the world feel lighter. When you're with her, everything feels better." At first, this might sound like an ordinary compliment. But when you think about it, there's something deeply romantic about those words. He isn't just saying she's fun or nice. He's saying that her very presence changes the world around her. She makes things easier, brighter, and lighter. That's not just admiration, it's something close to love. Fans who heard this quote were quick to react. Social media was filled with comments like, "That's the dream, to be someone's light," or "If Keanu feels this way about Sandra, they should have been together." People reposted the quote on Twitter, Instagram, and fan pages, adding captions like, "Find someone who talks about you the way Keanu talks about Sandra." The media also picked it up. Articles with titles like "Keanu's sweetest words about Sandra Bullock" spread across entertainment sites. Some writers called it one of the most romantic things an actor has ever said about a co-star. The quote became more than just a comment. It became a symbol of their bond. Sandra herself never dismissed these words. She often smiled whenever Keanu's compliments came up in interviews. While she didn't always directly respond, fans noticed her body language, her laughter, her shy expressions, the way she looked down when talking about him. Many believe she was touched more deeply than she ever admitted publicly. This quote also stands out because it reveals how Keanu sees Sandra beyond Hollywood. He isn't talking about her fame, her beauty, or her acting. He's describing the way she makes life itself feel better. That is a rare compliment because it speaks to her soul, not her career. When you put this together with his earlier quote about Sandra making you feel like the only one in the room, you can see a clear picture of how much she means to him. To Keanu, Sandra isn't just a co-star. She's someone whose presence changes the way the world feels. Fans often wonder, if Keanu felt this way, why didn't they ever date? Why didn't these words turn into romance? The truth is, both Keanu and Sandra admitted they were too shy back then. They liked each other but thought the other didn't feel the same. By the time they realized, they had already settled into a friendship they didn't want to risk losing. And maybe that's what makes these quotes even more powerful. They're like pieces of a love story that never happened, but still exists in the form of words. Keanu didn't need to date Sandra to express how special she was to him. His words alone were enough to make the world believe in their connection. Another reason people see this as romantic is because Keanu doesn't speak this way about everyone. He has worked with dozens of talented actresses, but his compliments about Sandra always stand out. They're softer, deeper, and more personal. It feels like he's not just describing a coworker, but someone who left a lasting mark on his life. This quote is now remembered as one of Keanu's most touching lines about Sandra. Even decades later, fans still share it online, often paired with photos of them together on speed or at red carpet events. To many, it's proof that their bond was more than just friendship. It was something extraordinary. So, when Keanu said Sandra made the world feel lighter, he wasn't just describing her effect on him. He was describing her effect on everyone. But coming from him, those words sounded almost like a hidden confession. A confession that even without romance, there was love, pure, respectful, and unforgettable. Sometimes the sweetest kind of love is the one that makes you laugh the hardest. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are not only admired for their talent and kindness, but also for their humor. While their deep words about each other often sound romantic, there are also playful moments where they joke about what could have been. These moments show that their bond isn't just about admiration. It's also filled with fun, laughter, and comfort. One of the funniest things Keanu ever said about Sandra came during an interview when someone asked about their connection. Keanu smiled and said, "Maybe in another life, Sandra and I would have had lots of babies together." The audience laughed, and Sandra herself later chuckled when the comment was brought up. It was a joke, of course, but one that carried a sweetness underneath. Fans instantly picked up on it, saying things like, "Why another life? We want it in this life." Sandra also had her share of jokes about Keanu. In another interview, she teased that dating him might have ruined their friendship. She laughed and added that she wouldn't want to risk losing him, even if it meant never trying romance. The way she said it made people smile, because it showed she cared so much about him that even the thought of hurting their bond was too much. These playful comments became fan favorites. They weren't dramatic or heavy, but they gave people a glimpse of the trust and comfort Keanu and Sandra shared. You can only joke like that with someone you feel completely safe with. It's the kind of humor that comes from knowing each other so well. Fans reacted strongly to these jokes. On social media, people wrote things like, "Even their jokes sound like love stories," and "This is the most wholesome friendship in Hollywood." Some even made memes pairing Keanu's lots of babies, joke with pictures of them from Speed or the lake house. For fans, the humor only made the romance feel more real. What makes these moments even more special is how natural they were. Keanu and Sandra weren't trying to entertain or create headlines. They were just being themselves, two friends laughing about what fans had been dreaming of for years. And that honesty is what made the jokes so charming. Humor has always been part of their bond. On the set of Speed, Sandra once said she laughed a lot because of Keanu. He would crack quiet little jokes between takes, often when she was nervous. Those laughs helped her relax and gave her the confidence she needed to keep going. Sandra often called Keanu the calm in the storm, not just because of his kindness, but also because of his ability to lighten the mood when things were stressful. Even decades later, their humor remains one of the strongest signs of their closeness. Joking about babies in another life or ruining the friendship isn't something you say lightly. It's something you say when you know the other person will understand, laugh, and love you even more for it. For fans, these jokes add another layer to Keanu and Sandra's story. It's not just about romantic quotes or deep admiration. It's also about fun, comfort, and joy. Together, they remind people that love, whether romantic or platonic, isn't only about serious words. Sometimes it's about making each other laugh until your heart feels lighter. This funny side of their friendship has kept fans smiling for years. Even though they didn't become a couple, their playful teasing proves something important. When you truly care about someone, you don't just admire them, you also laugh with them. And sometimes laughter is the most romantic thing of all. What if two people loved each other so much as friends that they chose not to risk it for romance? This is the question fans have been asking for nearly 3 decades. If Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock admired each other so deeply, if they spoke so kindly and sometimes so romantically about one another, why didn't they ever date? With so much chemistry on-screen and so many sweet quotes off-screen, it seems like they were meant to be. But the truth, straight from Keanu and Sandra themselves, is both simple and powerful. Sandra once explained in an interview, "Maybe we would have ruined it if we dated. I didn't want to lose the best friend I ever had." That sentence tells us everything. For Sandra, the risk of dating Keanu wasn't worth losing the bond they already shared. She valued their friendship more than any chance at romance. To her, Keanu was too important to gamble on. Keanu, in his own calm way, agreed. While he never made dramatic statements about it, he often hinted that their friendship was sacred. He said that sometimes life gives you people you're not meant to date, but meant to keep forever. Fans took this as his quiet way of saying Sandra was too precious to lose. Hollywood is full of stories of co-stars who dated, broke up, and then never spoke again. Keanu and Sandra didn't want to be one of those stories. They wanted something that lasted longer than a fling or a short relationship. And looking back now, it's clear they made the right choice. While romances fade, their friendship has only grown stronger over the years. For fans, though, this answer is bittersweet. On one hand, it's beautiful to know they cared so much about each other that they protected their bond. On the other hand, people can't help but wonder, but what if? The idea of Keanu and Sandra as a couple is one of Hollywood's greatest what could have been stories. Even Sandra has joked about it. She once said with a smile, "Maybe in another time, in another life, things could have been different." That little line kept the hope alive for fans. It was playful, but it also showed she had thought about it. Another reason they didn't date may have been timing. In the 1990s, both Keanu and Sandra were focused on their careers. They were young, busy, and constantly moving from one project to another. Even if they had feelings, the timing might never have been right. Life sometimes puts people in each other's paths not to start a romance, but to start something else, something lasting in a different way. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. Keanu and Sandra show us that love doesn't always need to be romantic to be real. Their connection is a reminder that friendship can be just as strong, just as emotional, and sometimes even more lasting than romance. Fans online often write things like, "They're proof that soulmates don't always marry each other," or "This is what unconditional love looks like." These reactions show how much people connect with their story. It's not about what could have been, it's about what already is, a friendship that has lasted decades without fading. So why didn't they ever date? The simple answer is that they valued what they already had too much to risk it. And in doing so, they gave the world something rare and beautiful, a bond that still inspires people today.